after some technical difficulties, we should be good now. This is the Star Citizen Report. This is me, your host, Woopnyo. How's it going? Then I have my good friend Spin.
Howdy.
We've been talking Star Citizen today, and there's a lot going on with the new Reliant, so let's get right in it before we crash again. Yay!
Don't say it like that. It won't happen again.
Okay.
Knock on wood.
So the Reliant was released. This was a couple months ago. They did a couple polls to see what other starter ships we, as gamers and players, wanted to play as, and this one is the two-seater, two-engine ship. It's really quite unique. It's a rotating shaft. It's got a lot of cargo space. Got two seats, and it changes a lot, like morphs. It's pretty cool. So I'm gonna play a quick video of it. There we go. That's working. So it's got vertical takeoff. Not only that, it moves, and then that part moves as well, and it can be in combat. Got a gimbaled mount down on the bottom, and then a regular standard mount underneath the cockpit.
Okay, I've got to read out Patrick's comment from the chat. My Hornet got wrecked the other day, and I tried to have it repaired. My insurance doesn't cover vandalism.
Cute.
I like it.
Cute. So that's the basic Reliant. There's a lot going on with it. It's a good standard ship. It's a good starter. It's a tier 2, which means it's going to be better than the other starting ones, and that it gives you more options. There's 3 variants that are planned. There's research, movie van, like a news van, sorry. And what's the last one? Remember? Probably combat.
Exploration. Oh, research is the exploration one.
Yeah.
Hang on, let me. That's why I took all these notes.
Oh, all right. It's really cool how the engine and the cargo bay move. They were originally thinking of putting the cargo into the wings, but they realized that if it tried to maneuver with only one loaded wing, or the internal cargo would move in any way, it would make the vehicle not be able to fly as well. It would be waylaid in one direction.
So what did you think of it overall? Like the overall shape and the style?
It reminds me a lot of a fan, or a manta ray, or a butterfly, or moth, whatever. But it's cool. I like the design choice with the way it moves. As far as
B-Wing's what jumped out at me right away.
yeah, definitely B-wing. Yeah. If the cockpit would have been off to the side, maybe a little bit better. But
Oh, that's true. But
yeah,
yeah, that's when I first saw it, and I saw it in the vertical flight configuration. I was like, it's a B-Wing.
right, right. And the seats actually move too, because like it starts off horizontal next to each other, but then when it goes into attack mode, it goes vertical, one on top of each other. The gunner is, I believe, on the bottom, and the pilot on top. And it only has one gimbal mount, and that's on the lower wing, and that's supposed to be better accurate for the gunner, whoever's shooting. And then it's got the other one, which is, I think, what do they have set up on there? Tractor beam right away.
Yeah, tractor beam is what it comes with.
It's got a cargo capacity of 20, which is more than any other starting ship right now. So this is your hauler. This is your basic startup unit. You can do almost anything, and it's not going to be great at anything, but it can do stuff.
Mini hauler is what they're calling it. And what you said there is just the same comment that they made on Around the Verse about it, which was, it's generally something that you can experience all different aspects of the game with. It's just that it's the tier 2, so it's that next step above. And there is some question on the forums, and some of the comments from the devs about, why are we going to tier 2 starter ships? There's a starter ship and there's everything else, but now we're having tier 2 starter ships. And it's just going to be, they're going to be a little more capable, but you don't have to go to tier 2 to play the game. Tier 1 starter ship is what you need to play the game, and tier 2 is, it's a reasonable place to start, but it's a step above. For me, one of the big things is it's multi-crew.
That's
So
huge.
that's going to open up starter ships to a whole bunch more people that are interested in playing with their friend, spouse, buddy, whatever.
Exactly. That's one of the great. That's going to be the starter two-seater, so you can go anywhere, pick somebody out, bring them somewhere else. You can start a base. You can do whatever you need to do just to get started. That's a really great feature to start off with an LTI. That's awesome.
So do you want to go through the Q&A a bit, and we'll just go step by step?
Sure, definitely. Sure, man.
So one thing I wanted to mention about this before we actually start into the Q&A is make a comment about the Q&A itself. And we started it with the Hull series, but I really like it. It gives people a chance to ask questions and the devs to answer things that they may not have thought of putting in their reports and dev documents that we get out on the forum. And I think it's not only is it good for dev community interaction, but it could forestall some of these, forum flame threads that we have when someone takes a casual comment or off the cuff remark from someone and, runs with it way farther than they should have. But leaving that aside, um, so the role is utility, research and reporting are the other two ones. Um, Short haul is what they're called. They actually call it the Reliant mini hauler. That's what it is up on the ship stat page for this version of it. And in Q&A 2, they actually refer to it as Model 0. So I'm looking forward to seeing the other ones. Now, the second seat, one of the first questions they come up with was, what's the second seat guy going to do? Is he focused strictly on the gun? And basically, he doesn't have to be focused strictly on the gun, but if you've got a guy there who can run the turret, that's going to make a huge difference in combat, just like it's going to make in the Super Hornet versus, any single seat fighter. Now you're going to have someone who can actually independently aim and fire that turret when it's most appropriate, when you have the biggest advantage in combat. So I think that's a huge thing right off the bat. Now, vertical and horizontal configuration. So vertical is for maneuvering and horizontal for speed. And it's a bit out of sync, the pictures that we're seeing on the screen, but I'm looking at the picture that shows the two configurations and followed by a picture showing the two seat configurations. And you can see how they can move from the horizontal to the vertical, and it makes perfect sense in the cockpit. Now, the cockpit itself, they talked about it having one of the best views of any ship.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any guarantee that it's going to be the best, but it's going to be a good view. And you can tell that, Xi'an style, like the Cartual Scout, where they have a big, almost a bubble canopy.
Well, they said that they're going to be removing the floor or make it retractable on this ship, so that way you won't get that side blocking on the right hand side when you're flying through there.
That's right, and I think that actually came from some feedback on the forums where they talked about, we're going to have to move that so we can get to our goal, which is having that kind of great visibility. Now, one thing I thought was interesting, they talked about the stowage. When you're on the ground, and obviously you're going to land in the horizontal configuration, you're going to have room to stand in the cargo space. When you're in space, let's say you were fighting someone in the cargo area, you're going to be crouched the whole time because there's not enough room for you to stand up when it's actually in the vertical configuration. I guess unless you stand on the bulkhead.
Yeah.
In space, who really cares?
There is no up or down.
It's all relative. They didn't know about the bed. Maybe some variants will have a bed, but the mini hauler doesn't have a bed.
They said maybe cot.
Yeah, maybe something you could set up. You could have a little cabinet, you open it up, and you pull out one of those camp cots and have to set it up. Probably make that into a mini game. That's what it feels like when I set them up. Changing modes, they said it'd take a few seconds. So it's not something you're going to do in the middle of combat, but it could be something you do, in preparation for combat. You detect something on sensors coming towards you, and you can try and shift to horizontal to build up the speed to get away, or stay in vertical or switch to vertical to fight it out.
Now, staying in horizontal makes you fly faster. More accurate that way. You can get in and out easier. So there will be a transition between moving to combat mode and going to flight mode, I guess you want to call it. What I would have a question is if the gun will still fire. I would think that the gun will still fire. It won't be as accurate, of course. Be firing from the hip, quite literally. But when you're flying faster versus more maneuverable, I'd like to see what it's really going to do to you as a seasoned veteran who's actually flying the thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I saw the comments about accuracy, but I don't know how that's going to play into it. I really can't see there being a change in accuracy. I thought it was mostly when I looked at the at the pictures and the concept art, I really thought it was about thruster configuration,
Mm.
but I don't really know how that's going to work out. And I kind of thought in horizontal, I don't know.
Maybe they
And
plan on turning off the gimbal mount in order to feed more power into the engines.
yeah, it could be something like that. But the thing is, what if you're flying in vertical mode and then you turn sideways?
Hmm.
You know, it's so I'm not sure how that's going to work out. I'm confident that, you know, they know what they're talking about and it's going to make sense, but there are some gray areas right now that we're just going to have to, trust that they're going to get sorted out. And we'll see it when we get it in the hangar.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I think it'll be a great ship.
Yeah, me too. Even though I'm beyond starter ships, I'm tempted to buy one just because.
Yeah, it's so different too. There's no other ship out there that's like it. Apparently, they're talking about maybe making other hybrids like this one, but nothing confirmed yet. I think I'd like to see that though.
Yeah, I love the different styles of ships and everything we have in this game. It is
Definitely.
so wide and varied. There's going to be something for everyone, so it's pretty awesome.
Hmm.
They did say on the less awesome side, no gray cat. You're not going to be able to fit a gray cat in there.
I was actually kind of disappointed by that. Crush the struts or something.
um, yeah, so as we mentioned before, the wingtip turret is going to come with a tractor beam, but you're going to be able to replace that with a turret if you wish. Here's the comment. They said best in class viewing angle planned and Xi'an inspired glasswork.
I like that. It's a really good view.
Now, they also talked about in hazardous environments, there would be a small advantage. So I'm curious, that made me think a couple of things. Okay, how much time are we going to spend in hazardous environments? What kind of hazardous environments is the game going to have around? And is that going to impact combat? Could you deliberately lure someone into an area that had, a hazardous environment and you're ready for it, so it gives you an advantage in combat? Or alternatively, when you see a hazardous area and you go, oh, that's going to degrade my sensors and my life support or damage the exterior of my ship, so I'm going to avoid it.
Yeah, I would
So,
do the same thing, definitely. They were saying something about the LA that they're using is of the alien landing his header is hazardous. Nice. The
yeah,
metal that they actually use on the hull and the wings, what it's made out of, is actually more resistant to heat, radiation, and blast fire or something like that. I
yeah,
remember reading.
exactly.
Right. So that might be what they're saying that it's more resistant to hazardous. But I think where you're going, like radiation in space, the gas giants, something like that. I could see that working as well for us.
Yeah, there's so much that can go into this game, and we're going to get a ton of stuff. I'm sure we won't get everything that everyone is hoping for because that's virtually impossible.
Hmm.
Um, but hazardous environments, is another aspect of the game that I hadn't really spent too much time thinking about. So it's great to see this in a dev document to tell me that they're thinking about it. And for Streak, landing is hazardous. When we talk about hazardous environments, I don't think they're talking about spaceport bars, but they might be.
Nice.
Uh, Now they talked about exploring. There's a part in Q&A 1 and a part in Q&A 2 about exploring that I thought was very interesting because my full name for my characters for years has been Spinward Bound because I'm really into exploration and getting out as far as you can. But they talked about the Reliant would be best for in-system exploring. Not as good as the 315 for doing a jump point because it's not as compact. And jump points are going to be very hazardous with limited space. So a 315i is going to be, or no, a 315a is going to be better than a Reliant for charting a jump point. And then, sorry, this is my Mark 1 show notes. In Q&A number 2, they talked about in-system research, exploration not based on jump points. They said it's not fleshed out yet, but that's what they're looking at for the Reliant. Not a jump point charter, but someone to do survey work and research in system.
Hmm.
So that's pretty cool. It's another aspect of the exploration side that we haven't heard about yet.
I think that would work well with the Orion. with searching for minerals and mining things like that. I think it will
That's a
work
great
well.
point. A surveyor
Yeah.
for that is an excellent idea.
I mean, even though it's larger than the other ships that are starter, this is the first one that gives an actual scanning platform. So I think it would work well with it.
Yeah, and in that case, your second seater is going to be the guy doing the scanning. So the
Yeah.
pilot's going to be flying, the second seater is going to be doing the scanning,
Hmm.
and you never know what that turret could be replaced with. Because one thing I've thought about in the past is how I personally would like to take my Super Hornet and potentially remove the turret and put in the tracker radar system to make it like a local command and control system for leading a flight of single seat ships,
An
in a combat
AWACS.
mission. Exactly.
Don't
Exactly.
don't they have that? Isn't that one of the? Isn't that the tracker?
Yeah, that's the tracker, but he's only single seat.
Uh,
So if you have a Super Hornet with the tracker radar in it, you're going to be able to have the pilot flying and fighting the ship, and the second seater actually, directing the combat of your whole team.
Commanding. Nice. Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
And I'm wondering, will you be able to replace that turret with some additional sensors or something to make it a better research vessel or a survey vessel?
That's true.
And I don't know. We just have to wait and see.
They didn't really go into the specifics on what's going to be actually in the ship. You just know that there's going to be a crawl space from cargo to cockpit.
That's right.
So there'll be a cot in there somewhere, maybe. Let's see.
Yeah, and let's face it, they don't know everything how it's all going to work out yet
Yeah.
either. They've got a really good concept and it's sufficiently fleshed out for them to push it to us, which means, it got through CR standards, which are reasonably high, I think.
Hmm.
Um, but there's still going to be changes and things that happen and things that get fleshed out and things they never thought of. And some of them they'll think of them, and some of them our guys, the community will bring it up in the forums and they'll go, "Oh, yeah, we'll have to do that."
I think my favorite part is that the ship is going to be memo approved because they were talking in one of the Q&As that the wing got chopped off or broken off or something. The guy was able to slowly and difficultly, but he flew back to the landing pad and landed safely to like his base. And it was, I'm like, oh, so Memo would only lose one and he'd be okay. All right.
Well, they did talk about, the Reliant is going to be a reliable ship, and that's mentioned time and time again in the lore comments as well as in the dev comments.
Hmm. I think we're going to find that with most of the Mystics ships. It's nice to see how they keep on that whole tradition, keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
Who needs wings? Nice Memo.
I could just see him landing with the cockpit only.
The bubble dome. Nice.
Reporting version and recon was an interesting thing that they brought up, which is someone asked for the reporting vision. Is that a reporting version? Is that something we can use for recon to do scouts of enemy ships? And they said, yes, you can. But I'm sort of reading between the lines and I'm saying, yes, you can, but it's not going to be as good as the Herald or something as getting away.
Yeah,
So,
the Herald with the hardware and the redundant systems, and yeah, it's
yeah.
better for that. But it's a good news van. It's got apparently a in-house high definition video, something like that. How do they say that? Oh, jeez, you don't remember?
No.
Okay, I'll just look it up real
I
quick.
don't remember that at all. You look it up and I'll blabble on.
Yeah.
They did mention thrusters that they said, in vertical mode, you're going to have thrusters are going to be gimbaled, not the 360 you get from a Cutlass. It's going to be limited to that, more limited than that, but it's still going to be gimbaled. And you may see a small person's head appear over my shoulder. Just ignore him.
It says a image enhancement suite that helps capture every moment of life in the stars. What's that mean? Oh,
I don't know, but I'm sure someone's thinking about putting wall-to-wall shag carpet in the cargo area and taking advantage of that.
oh, chicka wow wow. Yeah. So let's say how this comes up against other ships. What else do we have that are starter ships?
So what I'm looking right now on the stat page, and what a handy stat page we have where you can just pick a few ships to compare. So up on my screen, I've got the Mustang Beta because that's the exploration version, and the Aurora LX, the exploration light mercantile, and then the Aurora Clipper, which is the main hauler version, and then the Reliant. And when you have to do a quick comparison, size-wise, the Reliant, um, it stands its length and beam up on its head, so to speak, because everyone else is sort of, 18 and 13 meters for the Mustang. The Auroras are 18 long, but the beam's only 8 meters. The Reliant length is listed as 13, and their beam is listed as 29. So that's obviously in the horizontal, the landed configuration. With a height of 6 meters, it's the tallest of them by far. Well, not by far, but by 20%. And it's a little bit heavier than the Auroras, or a lot heavier than the Auroras, and a little bit heavier than the Mustang at 18,750 kilograms. Now, cargo capacity, it's got the largest cargo capacity of it. It's 7 more than the Clipper. The Clipper at 23 and the Reliant at 30. Now, unfortunately, we don't get a max power points size, max power plant size on the stat page. But the Mustang's got a 3 and the Aurora's got a 2. I'm guessing it's going to come in at a 3, but I'm not sure.
Well, they were worried about the max speed for it between 150 for the Aurora and 200 for the Mustang. So this one does again have 2 engines, so they're saying it's going to be somewhere in the middle there. So 175, 180. I don't think it's going to beat the Mustang. The Mustang is a more aerodynamic, better fuselage, and I think better engines like Tier 3 or something like that, 2 T3s.
Yeah. Like it's roughly the same mass, and it's got 2 TR2s in the Mustang, and the Reliant's only going to have 2 TR1s.
Yeah.
But what they're saying is even though they're only TR1s, those 2 TR1s are going to push it faster than the lighter Aurora does with its 1 TR3.
Mm-hmm. As much as I liked the Aurora when I first started, not anymore.
I still like the Aurora. It's a great ship. But the problem is that we have almost like ship inflation because we're like, this is a great ship, but this is just so much nicer. Like I got a Carrack and it's got this, and this, and it totally outclasses the starter ship. Well, of course it does. But that comes down to this game being, having the biggest ship is not winning the game.
That's true. But
enjoying the game isn't winning the game.
That's the game. The Aurora itself, it's got some really nice upgrades. I like changing out the cargo capacity and changing the weapons and stuff like that. But then when you find out what else you can do to other ships, modify them heavily, light, whatever you want to do, it just doesn't seem that great anymore. Maybe it's a lower class for a reason. Maybe we're just doing this for now in order to get to a higher level. I would guess. But save up your credits and get a better ship. Pretty much.
You're killing me, man. Of course that's what you do. You save up your credits and you get a better ship. That's the whole point.
But I can't get
you can have fun while you're doing it.
But I can't get the Reliant, not the Reliant, the Reclaimer or the Horizon just like to start and just get millions of credits right away and just buy any ship I want.
Well, you can, and I appreciate those people who are doing that because they are funding the game.
That's true.
But when we launch, I'm hoping we're going to get another 100,000 people who join, and most of them are going to get starter ships.
Yeah, that's true.
And you're going to see a lot of starter ships in the universe because most of the NPC pilots are going to be running small ships.
That's true. That's true.
And that is something that we have to really fight against because we've pledged so much, and I'm right there with the best of them for throwing money at this game. But except maybe I'm not quite caught up to Arlia, but
not yet. No. But you're getting there. It's all right.
I got the little concierge tab in my RSI hangar.
Fancy.
Yeah, it just reminded me how much money I shouldn't have spent on this game. But it's like we were talking about it. This game excites my imagination, and that's why it gets more money. And I think it does that for a lot of people.
Do you think, since we have these 3 starter ships now, and of course we're going to get more eventually anyways, do you think that people getting into the game will just get the starter ships, or do you think we'll have more people buying the ship they actually want now?
I think that when you make it accessible like this with all different types of starter ships at very reasonable prices, you make it more accessible for people to get into the game. They're willing to, risk $35, $40 to get a starter ship and get in and see if they like the game.
That's fair because a starter, a regular game, a hard, $60 is what you normally spend in a game. They're coming out with more expensive ones, and then you add DLC to it, and you spend $150 for an EA game to get everything for it. So this one, yeah, getting into it for $30, $20, not a big deal. But at the same time, why wouldn't you want to start with the ship that you want?
Well, they're letting you have a starter version of the ship that you want by having so many different types of starters.
Hmm.
That's the way I look at it.
Okay.
And you have to build up. Like one of the things I'm thinking is, a few of us get together, we're on regularly the same time, we crew a ship together, we build up our funds together,
Sounds like
you
an
know.
MMO.
And maybe the fun is, we're gonna, what we want to do? This constellation is great, but this other guy here, he wants to get, you know, a blockade runner. Something we can, run the blockades, smuggle with, do those things. And acquiring everything to get that ship and then actually making those runs is how we're going to enjoy the game.
True. Yeah. Building up our own fleet, doing it ourselves. Yeah, I can see that being a big draw. Definitely.
I think it's actually going to be a little more difficult for the large organizations to keep people focused because you're going to have to be focused on much larger organizational goals when half the organization is kitted out with, Banu merchantmen and hull seas
Yeah.
and, you're going to be going for economic dominance of your sector, not, hey, we'd like to upgrade our turret.
So look at Steve over there. You're still in the Aurora. Oh gosh, really? We don't want to play with Steve. Ugh.
Yeah, and Streak is talking about the military ships open. And last weekend it was the starter ships, and this
Right.
weekend it's the military ships available. So CIG's been great about having those ship sales and um, free tries.
Hmm.
And those free tries are key for people to decide if they like it enough to spend more money.
Unfortunately, it didn't happen enough for me because I bought a what is that? I started watching the Aurora, and I had a good time with it until I played with somebody who was in a Super Hornet. I'm like, the hell am I even doing? And
Well,
then,
and that's an artificial construct because of Arena Commander now. The only thing we can do is fight.
yeah.
So those ships that have strengths that aren't fighting,
Hmm.
we have trouble loving them right now.
Yeah, that's
But in
true.
the future that will change.
Well, see, then I put a little bit more money in, and I got the 300 series. That was also a mistake. So then I upgraded to the Hornet, and I'm happy with it now. But of course, I have certain other people who shall remain nameless who have no problem blowing me out of the sky. So obviously, I'm not a good pilot.
I did see a video. It's been around for a while of an Aurora pilot taking on a Hornet and killing it.
Well, I totally believe that. Definitely, if you're a good pilot, you know what to do. Definitely, I could see that happening.
So, a little more news on the Reliant. No plans for a single seat version because, of course, when the big thing is the starter ship, we're having a multi-crew dual seat starter ship. One of the first questions has got to be, are you making a single seat version? Because that's the kind of people we are. No one's ever entirely happy.
No.
There's a great comment about they're not going to tell us what they are, but there's some giant tech surprises that are coming. And the question came when someone was asking about, will the thrusters be fully capable when loaded? So the information we're getting about the speed is really when the vessel's loaded. That was from that. So we're going to get something that's capable of maneuvering while loaded. It's not going to be a wallowing pig as soon as you put cargo in it, which is a good thing.
Following thing.
There was, and I guess there was a picture. I never saw it, but there was a picture of the Reliant with its wings folded up
Yep.
in almost what I thought of as a carrier configuration.
Right. They're going to be using that for like sitting in the carrier. Yes. The F Tomcat is what I keep coming up with, or the Fighting Falcon, whatever. The wings just fold up and makes it more room. That's what it's all about.
I'm a lot older than you. I was thinking about the World War II Corsair.
Ah, okay.
But
Jets,
yeah,
man, jets.
they
Like,
didn't specifically say carrier. Of course, all our minds jump to carrier. They said for long range transport, but I think that's what it means.
I don't really see the ship doing a lot of long range transport, actually.
No, I mean being transported,
Oh, that
so you
makes
can
more
fit a
sense.
whole bunch of them into space.
Yeah. Fill
But
them in
no,
with
it's definitely
Hollies.
this is a short haul version, short haul ship. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. One side of the frigate to the other.
Did you? So for the rest of the stats, um, there's not too much besides the hard points, but it's interesting to look at, compare the Mustang Beta. You're looking at, for fixed, 2 size 1. The Aurora's got 2 size 2, and the Reliant, 2 size 1 again. So they're still staying in the same zone, but the Aurora is going to end up being a little more heavily armed, even though it's the smallest of them, as far as the fixed goes. Now, you got to remember, you're going to have size 3 gimbal turret, which probably means size 2 weapons, if I've interpreted that properly.
I think so.
And the Beta has, a size 1 unmanned turret with, it comes stock with 2 M3A laser cannons.
Very interesting. There's no missile launcher, though.
No missile launcher. Well, actually, they have a pylon listed here under Reliant. And I'm going to have to go back to Q&A 2, because in Q&A 2, they do specifically list out the weapons that it's going to come with. So I'm just going to quickly go back there so that I don't miss anything.
There's a different kind of firepower that comes with having rockets. When you only have 4, it's... I mean, you can take down a site or something like that, but...
Okay, mate, I got to stop you right there. We're talking about missiles, not rockets.
Okay, sorry.
Now, there are going to be rockets in here, which are going to be short-range, unguided, very large warheads. So a big punch if you hit, but not as much of a chance to hit as you have with a missile. So here's what it says. Can you clarify the maximum size and number of attachments that the gimbal hardpoint can handle? The Wingtip Turret is listed as size 3 hardpoint for the Reliant. This means you can run a single fixed size 3, run a stock size 2 turret. It comes with a tractor beam, but it fits any size 2 weapons. You can run the optional twin size 1 turret. This turret is shown in the concept art and will be available through Rec and VD when Reliant is made available. Sorry, I should say Voyager Direct, but I just...
It's okay. We all know what you mean.
But it's interesting that there's still questions about how the weapon system works. And I think that's something the CIG is going to have to spend a little more time talking about, because it comes up over and over again. So it's going to be, I think, something they're going to have to fairly regularly do a little refresh on, keep people up to date, especially with new people joining and old people like me that have gone through, 2 iterations of the system already.
I think they're going to have to change it again. I think you're right. But I think they're going to have to split up the groups into 1, 2, 3 and make it like 1.5, or make that into 1 and 2, and then 2 would become 2 and 3, or 3 and 4, things like that, in order to keep the size difference, in order to keep the ordnance difference. It makes more sense. There's just so many questions going on with it. We can use all these lasers, we can use all these one of the ordnance with rockets, or I'm sorry, missiles. But at the same time, it's so confusing. We have to change it somehow. They have to change it.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that they just haven't revealed to us their understanding of the level of complexity that it has.
Mm-hmm.
And it could just be they're holding back and waiting, because the farther they get down the development cycle, the more they're going to understand what the requirements are of the weapon system.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a pretty reasonable way, the way it is, but it's complicated, and there's still people in the community that are confused.
You're gonna fight confusion everywhere. You're not gonna make anybody, and you're not gonna make everybody happy. So
No, you will never make everybody happy.
No. Find something that works.
So you want to talk more about the Reliant, or do you want to jump through some other news?
Whatever you want to get through, man. It's all good.
Well, I was thinking we might as well jump through some news, if that's okay with you. Around the verse on Thursday, I thought was interesting. Obviously, they talked about the Reliant sale. 11,000 Reliants sold so far, or at least at that time, which is pretty awesome. The news, though, we went through Santa Monica, and they talked a little bit about the Reliant, but the part that jumped out at me was they talked about getting ready to do another balance pass on physics and realistic weapons mass. They talked about, right now, the Mantis is the only weapon that is actually taking damage from heat. So everything is heating. The heating side is working properly, but the Mantis is the only one that's actually taking damage. So it's a disadvantage for Arena Commander, but they're going to be moving all the weapons to that. So when they're overheating, they're going to be starting to take damage. And they talked about, the force value is what they called it, but basically for projectiles, the speed of the projectile and the mass of the projectile equals the amount of damage that it does. Now, they didn't talk about uh, the resistance of certain materials to ballistic impacts. They didn't talk about, the angle of attack. So, at what angle the ballistic round hits the target, and is that going to have an impact? I'm sure it will, but it's like the weapon system. We haven't gotten to that level of complexity yet. Now, one thing, the example they did talk about is, pulling the Starbuck maneuver. So someone's on your tail and you're traveling 300 meters per second. You whip around 180 degrees and you're firing at them. They will actually model that so that, it's your weapon, your projectile is going to have a different intercept speed because those two ships are traveling together as it would compared to a head-on situation where you've got two ships traveling towards each other 300 meters per second. So 600 meters per second added to the speed of the projectile. So your ballistic weapon is going to hit that much harder.
It's really called a Starbuck?
That's what people call it.
Okay.
It's Battlestar Galactica. Don't you remember that was his famous maneuver way back when? And then in the new one,
I was thinking coffee. Like you're going to buy him a drink or something? I'm like, that doesn't fit at all. Where's this going?
Oh, you just lost some serious geek cred there.
Yeah, well, at least I'm being honest. Would you rather lie? Yeah, that sounds like a great maneuver. Next time we're going to do a ducktail.
Ilphonic talked about something interesting too, and that was hit reactions. So they're doing some balancing too. They have this hit reaction system so that when you get hit, your body is going to react to the impact of that weapon. And what they were finding was the system they put in was too realistic because someone would get hit and the body would react in a realistic fashion, and it gave the opponent too big an advantage. So pretty much whoever got the first hit in was winning the fight.
Definitely.
So that's something where they're going to have to find a balance to make it a little more fun than that, so that there is still an impact and effect of being hit, and yet it doesn't mean you're down for the count or someone has an undeniable advantage over you.
You don't need to get shot in the chest with a beanbag. Yeah, if you get hit, you're going to get knocked down. I understand the armor's going to absorb some of it and the trajectory. They can't make it too real because nobody will play it.
Yeah, exactly. They talk about improving things like the grenade throw, so you can actually have the grenade in your hand, figure out exactly where you want to put it, take your time. They didn't talk about it, but it could be, essentially pull the pin, and you got 3 seconds, so you count for 2 seconds, and then you throw it to limit the chance of someone on the other side grabbing it and throw it back at you.
2.5 to 3 as an American, so you know.
They said the item port system is working well, which was interesting because they haven't had that very long, and apparently it worked. It meshed into their system very well. They did say that first-person movement, they're still working on improving that, which is great because it's been better every time we've seen it, and they're still working to improve it. Now, this is the comment that I put 3 stars beside. It was the very last comment of the Ilphonic section, and they were talking about when they would have these improvements done. And the guy said, so by next week, anyhow. So I think, this is just Spin's prediction. I think end of next week we might see the first-person shooter, which I think would be very cool. I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm not as optimistic, but that does sound awesome. I'm all for it.
I'm glass half full, man.
God.
And you know what? Next week, if it's not out, I'll be saying the same thing. I think it's going to be next week.
3 years
I'm
later.
not impatient. I'm just looking forward to it. In Austin, they talked about the Universe Simulator. They used to be called the Economy Simulator, and that's the part that's being farmed out to a contractor, Wormbite. And I'm not sure. I don't have a ton of details on that. I haven't read that much. I've read some speculation, but I haven't seen too many dev comments on exactly how that's going to be used. But it's going to be the first thing we're going to see when when the persistent universe module comes in about buying and selling and how the market works. And it's going to be like everything else in this game, it's going to change. But this is the tool they're going to use to figure out how it's going to change. And it's one step closer to persistent universe. A couple minor things I mentioned. The security turret concept was complete. So that's the thing that's going to stun you if you're a bad person. And then someone's going to come and collect you, take you to jail in the back of a golf cart. They said they're going to go into landing zones. And, well, if the turret's taking care of everything, you don't need a high-class police car to come get you. Just throw you in the back of the golf cart, drag you off.
Bobcat scooper.
Yeah. Maybe it'd be like Monty Python. Bring out your dead. It was interesting when they talked about cockpit standards. Now, he said, for the Hornet, for example, I think he said it was a HOTAS center left configuration, and it has about 50 animations. Now, if every ship has an individualized cockpit, that is a lot of freaking animations.
Mm-hmm.
So what they're planning on doing is limiting it down to the number he threw out was 7 cockpits. Now, each one could be skinned differently and look completely different. But I imagine they're talking about, this one's going to be a HOTAS, like the Hornet. This one is going to be the small sort of steering wheel, like what am I trying to say? Like a 300i.
Okay.
And, another style might be 2 joysticks or things like that. And limited them down, and then they can be skinned completely different. The joystick can look completely different, but the button setup and how it works would be similar enough so that, those 50 animations could be used in several different ships. So 50 animations for closing your cockpit slider, for lifting off, for whatever.
That would save on system requirements and make loading faster. Everybody else around you. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
So I think it's a balance between not ideal, which ideal would be every ship has its own individualized animations,
Mm-hmm.
and efficiency and effectiveness for CIG. They also mentioned a 10-button power system, which I got the impression that's something they've already used as a standard for a lot of ships where, for changing power configurations, they've got 10 buttons and the animations are set for that, and it could be used in multiple cockpits. I don't know that for sure, but that was my impression. They had a 30-second video of a ship jacking where some guy came to a Hornet in space and, tried to break in using his pistol and somehow got in through the cockpit and stole someone's ship.
That's pretty
I
cool.
half suspect it was his own ship, but he just did it for the video, but still it looked good. There was a couple of tips in the interview with John Pratchett, who was the initial physics programmer for CIG. There's now 4 physics programmers, but he was the first one. And he talked about the G-force system, which we've all flown with now. And he said one of the things they did when they made it was they made it tunable so that just like Ilphonic talked about FBS and their body reaction system, so they can, find that balance between real life physics and fun. He also talked about working on the big ships and how complex it was and how much more complex it was in the small ships. I didn't like the way he talked about waypoint-driven controls, because that made me think of, okay, so you have to plan ahead and you say, well, I'm heading for that waypoint, and then while you're still heading to that waypoint, you could plan your next waypoint. Now that's totally, that's just Spin taking his guess at what he meant by waypoint controls, where controls being waypoint-driven. But I'm hoping like it's not like that. Yeah.
It sounds like going from one sector to the next sector near a station. Doesn't sound like you're going to be colliding with anything. It's just going to be safe waypoint transport.
Yeah, like I'm not hitting the panic alarm or anything on it, but that sort of concerned me when he said it. Now, he did talk about third order motion, which I thought was interesting, asymmetric acceleration and deceleration. So depending on your configuration, you may accelerate at a different rate than you decelerate. He also talked about jerk values, which my interpretation is, you ram on full power, there's going to be that initial jerk of movement. And Yeah, you're calling a pilot a jerk because you just got flung from the galley down into the hold. But he said even going from point A to point B is going to be complex in a big ship. And the physics system uses mass distribution. And so the flight mechanics and control system is based on the calculated center of mass and the moment of inertia. And those are the two values that his system works off of. And now those are calculated by the designers when they made the ship, and it's going to be calculated sort of by a different system, which will report that information to his system. Now, he wasn't 100% certain. He said, assuming dynamic changes will be used, it could be possible in flight. And that's something that's been mentioned before. The Reliant example, you lose a wing. Not only did you lose a thruster, you lost a whole bunch of mass. So now your ship is going to be operating completely differently because it's going to have a different center of mass and a different moment of inertia. So it's a pretty cool system from what he's describing. I hope we have a lot more control than he made me feel when he said waypoint driven controls. And I think that we will, but we'll just have to wait and see when we get multi-crewed ships in Arena Commander.
You really think that they're going to have waypoint control to instances like in Arena Commander? Be like a small sector, like maybe 1 mile across, and then you take another waypoint to another one of those?
I don't know. I really think when he was talking about waypoint controls, he was talking about not like Wing Commander where you had a waypoint and that's how you got to the next sector, but literally in a small area, you would set a waypoint for your ship to head for. But it's all supposition. It's based on one small comment, and I hate to, make too much out of it. And I don't want people to make too much out of it. But that's just the impression that I got. And I'm willing to wait and see how it all turns out. In ship shape, they talked about gallants and tactical systems. And what I thought was really interesting is the SIG style guide. It's kind of a balance between world building, what our universe is going to be like, and real life efficiency for the company. They had everything in there from backstory to concept art to pictures of real world weapons. In this case, it was artillery and things like that, with highlighted portions of the picture saying, this is the Gallanson style. And, they bring up another weapon and say, now this part here, that's the Gallanson style. And, the TLDR of it was Gallanson is high rate of fire and velocity, but also balanced by high heat and mass. And I think that's how we're going to find these different weapon systems. There's going to be a style for each manufacturer, and you're going to know that Bering gives you this and Gallanson gives you that. So you look for the specific model you want in that area based on your desires or your needs. Gee, they even had a Venn diagram in there of how it fitted, is this more military? Is it more commercial? They had a color palette. It was a great look at how they have built the background for all of these things.
Trust this guy. He's got a graph. Listen to him.
Exactly. And they brought out a new section for ATV, which was Which Glitch. And they had a top 5 countdown of their favorite glitches. My personal favorite was Low Rider, because I love the song Low Rider, and they played that song. But they had a hungry ship that apparently ate the pilot when it climbed in. And Mr. McTwisty, this guy literally twisted all around. Like spaghetti. Like sucking him into a black hole. Maybe we'll have black holes.
That's another point I don't want to even start to speculate about. Wow.
We've got the feature for it.
We have the science.
Anyway, mate, if there's any questions from chat, we'd be happy to talk to them. But there was so much news in this past 2 weeks that we just can't cover it all.
There's no way. We'd have to make another hour. Start it on time and put another quarter in the computer. But
lately has been enough for it almost go for a weekly show. But I know that's going to walk back over the summer. So, we don't want to get too excited.
Lives. Come on, man. Asking too much. In chat, Quick Player says, I quote, I don't think flying in gray, black, red haze is fun. They need to change the G4 stuff for real. I agree. I don't like it either. It pisses me off. I try to do a quick turn or 180 Starbuck, and I almost die because like all the blood rushes, the red out, a blackout, whatever you want to call it. I'm not good at racing anyways, but it makes it more difficult for me. However, I'm sure with practice, I get it down. But I'm not worried about it. I'm willing to give it a shot. I like the immersion factor.
I like the immersion factor too, although I won't be surprised when they do the balancing if they make us a little bit tougher
Hmm.
and a little more resistant to it so that you see it and you have a longer period in which you can, tough it out and react with it. Um, but, we'll wait and see. And I'm nothing if not confident that we're going to enjoy this game.
I think maybe they'll just tone it down.
I
Um,
agree.
that way it won't completely black out your screen and red out your screen. I think that if you're abusing yourself in your ship, then yes, you should pay the penalty for it. But I think it's maybe a little bit too strong. You know?
Yeah, make it a little more transparent so
Yeah.
you can still sort of fight through it a little bit longer and give you a chance to recover. And I know that one of my problems is that once I get there, I find it hard to back off just a little bit and
Yeah.
get yourself out of that zone.
Yeah.
I either don't back off enough and it's gone, or I back off too much and I've failed in the maneuver I was after.
Yeah. If you want to have the advantage on your target, you need to put something at risk sometimes. If that's what it has to be, I'm okay with that. I'm willing to weigh it, and if it takes me longer to get behind my target to get a better shot, then so be it. But if I got to black out just to get that better shot and kill the enemy in that one hit, I'll do it.
Well, there's a couple comments there about the G Suit Mark II and Inertia Dampeners, and those were big discussions. Geez, almost a year ago now, I think. Um, and I think that you're right for Smarketus that there's going to be an improved G Suit. There'll be other things that we can do that just aren't in the universe yet.
Mhm.
But as far as inertial dampeners, if I remember the lore right, the way it come down to is the inertial dampeners essentially don't work in combat because they can't react fast enough. They take some time to react, and that's why you can use the inertial dampeners to keep you from being turned into jam when you go to zero point 0.2 of light speed, and yet they're not helping you when you're at 300 meters per second dogfighting.
I think it'd be really cool if they have the different types of G suits, Mark II, Mark III, Mark 9, whatever. Kind of like how Tony Stark has 40 some ships or suits, whatever. I think that would help you not only upgrade your ship, you upgrade yourself. Better gear that you have, the less chance of blacking out, or the lower quality maybe.
Yeah, and I think you're going to have some of your combat suits are going to have G suits built in, and some won't,
Yeah.
because some guys are more interested in fighting and they don't want that extra weight. They're more interested sort of in first-person shooter, and they don't want that extra weight. And some people want to be able to hop out of their cockpit and engage in combat.
See, I had the problem a little bit in the Aurora. I had the blackout red out, and then I got the 300 and I had it like every time I turned. Like I was doing stopping as I'm turning, and I was expecting it to just go. That was horrible. So then I switched up to the Hornet, and it doesn't happen nearly as often. I think you have to find the ship that works well for you if you don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, I agree. I do want to address Quick Play's comment there, that he wishes they had that. And it's just a game choice. Like it's a game style choice. They've decided to go with this because the style of game that they're after, we need to be able to limit the speeds that these ships go in order for them to engage in combat. If we had inertial dampeners that were 100% effective, essentially the combat would happen in straight lines, and it would only happen in certain spots where there was a need to have combat around a planet, or at a jump point. There's going to be enough of that as it is.
There's only certain weapons you could use too, because when you use ordnance, there's maximum velocity, and if you're doing that in zero or even lower G versus on the planet, I don't think that'll work well. Flying at it, another ship flying alongside, it'll go, but then it'll slow down and hit yourself in the windshield.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just a game choice for this game. That's the way they decided to go, and I don't think it's stupid. It's just a choice.
Mm. And
Um,
they may change it too. Yeah. I'd like to see it changed a little bit.
I think they'll still be tweaking it,
Yeah.
but I don't think the core system is going to change.
Yeah.
What else did we have? We had a temper for producers. It was Chris Roberts' birthday. Um, the announcement for GamesCon in Cologne is up. We met a couple of the devs. There was a tent for the artists. Oh, this was interesting. Mark Hamill speculation. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but Mark Hamill tweeted that he was in Germany doing a non-Star Wars project, and someone mentioned that there would be a celebrity guest in mocap, and that was mentioned. I think it was a stretch goal, like way, way back when.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that people got excited about that because little wing commander love, the heart of the tiger could return. But anyway, that's pure speculation, and I just thought it was an interesting rumor.
Still want to see him dressed up like Joker. I think that'd be funny as hell.
um, I did want to talk a little bit about the Spectrum Dispatch, the Goldfinch hearings, which, in the lore, I'm not a huge lore guy, but I do read the Star Citizen stuff. And I thought it was interesting that it was about a leak of documents. And it came shortly after the FPS module theft, shall I say? Did you hear about it, Whoop?
I did not. That's new to me.
So apparently, and this is all just collected from here, there, and the interweb. So I wouldn't, swear and bet my child on it. But Disco Lando posted some pics, and in one of his pics was a partial URL, and someone used that URL to get in and get a copy of the FPS module build. And I found a couple of sites that confirmed that it was out there, like Tweak Town and different sites like that. So we're not talking about NBC here for reliability. But still, apparently someone got in there and took out, got a copy of the module, which really blows, in my opinion, because and I'm sure it'd be a backer, because it's someone who's interested is watching. No one who's not a backer is really watching. And all they did was cause extra work, delay things.
It's like the Source engine all over again. Give me Half-Life 3.
Yeah, and it's a breach of trust. And the community and CIG need to have mutual trust in order for this game to progress in the way we all want it to progress. And when things like this happen, it just annoys me because it's a breach of trust for no real benefit other than someone saying, I did it. That same person could have got it and contacted CIG and said, hey, you got a backdoor here, you got to close. Anyway, that was my annoying thing for the week.
We've seen it just as a guild. We had issues with somebody leaking, and we had somebody told us to fix it, and that helped us a lot.
Yeah, and why couldn't someone have taken that approach rather than essentially stealing the FPS module and then forcing CIG to decide, are they going to take legal action? What are they going to do? Are they going to ignore it? How are they going to revamp their security procedures? Meanwhile, all that brain power is not focused on making our game. It's focused on fixing that problem.
Yep. People.
Damn them.
People. Life would be so much better without people, damn it. Wait.
England, answer said England, not Germany. Were you talking about Gamescom, mate? Did I get the location wrong?
Well, Cologne's in Germany. So.
Yeah, I thought it was in Germany. That's where it always is, I thought.
Yeah. Well.
But on the other hand, it's not the first time I've been wrong either.
Me either. He constantly, Whoop, on 4:38 during your video, you should totally said this instead of this. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna come back and smack me for that later. No, it's okay.
I'm just quickly going through the show notes to see if there's anything we're missing. The 3 variants for the Reliant were the Researcher, News Van, and Skirmisher. I don't know if we actually spelled it out.
Combat, News, and Research. Yeah.
Sandy was still in the UK, so is that 3 weeks now she's been gone? I think it's 3 weeks.
Sure.
And Ben has mentioned a couple times that she's going to have an interesting role in the game, but they're not going to tell us what it is.
Looking forward to the different ways that people are using it. It's pretty awesome.
What do you think, Whoop?
I think we're pretty much done. There was a lot of stuff thrown at us, mostly the Reliant. That's what we were most excited about. The lore isn't, it's there. I'm not interested in it right now. I'll be more interested in it when I find out how it actually affects me. I actually want to buy I want to buy a Reliant now, but things are more important, so I'm not going to.
His wife is right over his shoulder listening to him talk.
Well, the big turnoff for me for the Reliant is it doesn't come with a package. There's no you get the game with it. There's no hanger with it. Well, maybe there's a hanger with it, but it doesn't. It's not a starter thing like a starter ship would be. That's what I don't like about it. And my Super Hornet is my package right now, so I can't upgrade or downgrade that. I can't get rid of that. The best I
Yeah.
can do is like hope for a chassis upgrade later, which I'll do. I'll spend another $20 to get something else. Okay.
I think it's going to come though. I think this is the concept sale, and when the variants come out, that's when you're going to see the packages.
Yeah.
It's a starter ship. It's going to have to come with packages.
But now it's got LTI. Why would I want to wait?
But you can get it now,
Hmm.
and then you can change it to a package when the packages come out.
Yeah.
I did notice in some of Thamon's notes, he talked about the temp for the producers talked about environmental hazards and the different EVA suits that have different ratings to deflect outside radiation, the duration of an EVA, and things like that. Arena commanders looked at solar flares and similar dangers. Some of the discussed mission generator content includes disabled ships that may be falling towards the sun, which could affect what sort of an EVA suit you have. And that sort of relates back to our previous discussion about the Reliant,
Hmm.
and that in those hazardous areas, the Reliant's going to be a little more capable than some other ships.
I hope so, anyways. Extra 3 feet is nothing. Come on.
So anyway, Whoop, thanks very much for having me on. Awesome.
Thanks for watching. Thank you everybody in Twitch for watching us. We're gonna put this up on YouTube a day or three or a week or something. Not here next week. The following week is the get together, so we will not be having another show. That's the 13th.
Yep, the weekend of the 13th.
Okay, weekend of the 13th, we will not be having another show. Spin, you're not going to there, but I will be there along with Salmon. They're doing the dinner thing on Friday if you're a grievance member and or in the area. Hopefully you post it on the forum saying, hey, you're going to be at the dinner. It's at that bar.
It's Bar and Grill.
There you go. I forget the name of it.
That Bar and Grill.
That there bar. So we'll be there. I'll be there talking about Star Citizen, of course. I play a bunch of other games, so if you want to talk about other games, that's fine too. I'm not into Elite and Dangerous. I'm not into it. I like Space Sims, of course, but at the same time, I'm waiting for this one. This is what I want. So we'll see. How about you, Spin? What are you doing in 2 weeks?
I am going back to Canada, visit home, see the family. I got some work things to do too, so making a trip of it.
All right. And if I won't see you, but if any of the other members see us that weekend, I'll see you at the get together. It'll be fun times. We have some surprises planned, giveaways, all that fun stuff. So go grievance, and I guess I'll see you later. Thanks.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for watching.